The first thing anyone noticed at the rest stop was how ordinary the afternoon felt, the kind of dry, sun-bleached quiet that settles over highways where nothing ever seems to happen, until suddenly everything does. Dust hung low near the asphalt, trucks hummed past without slowing, and a single police cruiser sat parked near the edge like it had been there forever. What no one noticed, what no one could have imagined, was that in the middle of this calm, an officer was silently asking for his life to be saved, and only 3 police dogs were paying attention. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment and ask yourself something simple. If you believe that kindness still exists in unexpected places, that second chances matter, and that even the smallest signal can change a life, then pause for 1 second and like this video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us why we still believe in good. The officer had been on duty since dawn, working a routine highway patrol that stretched through long, empty miles of desert road. His uniform was dusted with the fine powder that never quite leaves this place, no matter how often you brush it away. To anyone passing by, he looked calm and composed, leaning against the open bed of a white pickup truck as if he were simply checking paperwork or waiting for backup. The truth was far darker, heavier, and pressing down on his chest with every shallow breath he took. His hands were bound behind him, hidden from view, his body positioned just carefully enough to avoid suspicion. The pickup truck was not his, and the men inside it was not under arrest. The officer had been overpowered hours earlier after stopping what he thought was a stranded vehicle. What followed was a chain of mistakes, violence, and fear that left him trapped in the back of that truck, gagged, bruised, and running out of time. The rest stop sat a short distance away, a lonely stretch of concrete with vending machines, faded signs, and a handful of travelers stretching their legs. It was the last place anyone would expect danger to unfold. That was why the men who had taken the officer chose it. He needed fuel, supplies, and a moment to think. The officer needed 1 chance. His heart pounded every time footsteps passed nearby. Every laugh, every car door, every engine starting felt like hope arriving and leaving all at once. He knew better than to struggle openly. He knew better than to scream. His training told him that survival sometimes depended on patience, on waiting for the smallest opening. And so he watched. He listened. He searched for something, anything, that could be turned into a signal. Across the lot, another patrol vehicle rolled in quietly, barely drawing attention. Inside were 3 police dogs returning from a long day of training exercises with their handler. They were tired but alert, their bodies relaxed yet ready, the way working animals never truly shut down. As they stepped out, their paws hit the ground with purpose. To most people, they were just dogs stretching after a drive, tongues out, eyes scanning for water and shade. But beneath that surface, their instincts were alive, sharp, and listening to a language humans often forget exists. The desert carried smells, vibrations, and emotions layered into the air, and something about this place felt wrong to them. The officer knew those dogs. Not by name, not personally, but by reputation. He had seen them at training days, had watched how they moved, how they focused, how they responded to the smallest cues. He knew that if anyone might notice something out of place, it would be them. Slowly, carefully, he shifted his position in the truck bed, letting his boot scrape against the metal just enough to produce a sharp, unnatural sound. He leaned his shoulder, causing the truck to rock slightly. Most people nearby barely glanced over. The man who had taken him tightened his grip and glanced around, irritated but unconcerned. The dogs froze. Their ears lifted in perfect unison. Their bodies stiffened, muscles tightening beneath their coats. It wasn't the sound alone that caught them, it was the emotion riding along with it. Fear has a scent. Desperation leaves a trace. The dogs began to pull subtly toward the truck, their focus narrowing like a lens closing in. Their handler noticed the shift immediately. Years of working together had taught him to trust that moment when trained animals react without instruction. He followed their gaze to the white pickup and felt a prickle of unease settle into his gut. The officer in the truck took another risk. With his hands bound, he flexed his fingers in a pattern against the metal wall behind him, a slow, deliberate rhythm he had learned years earlier in training. It was a distress signal rarely used, one meant for moments when visibility was limited and speech was impossible. The sound was barely audible over the wind, but the dogs heard it clearly. One of them let out a low, uncertain whine, not loud enough to alert the men nearby, but enough to confirm what they already knew. Something was wrong. Someone needed help. As the handler moved closer under the pretense of a casual walk, the tension thickened. The man at the truck shifted his stance, sensing eyes on him now, sensing attention he didn't want. He smiled too quickly at passing travelers, his body language tightening. The dogs circled, their movements controlled but purposeful, noses catching the air, tails stiff. The officer's breathing quickened as hope flickered to life, fragile and terrifying. He knew this could still end badly. He knew that one wrong move could push everything into chaos. But he also knew this was his only chance. The moment broke suddenly and completely. One of the dogs barked sharply, a clear alert that snapped heads around the rest stop. The handler reacted instantly, calling for backup with calm urgency, his voice steady even as adrenaline surged. The men by the truck bolted, abandoning any pretense of normalcy, but he didn't get far. Training, instinct, and teamwork came together in a blur of movement. The dogs moved with precision, creating distance and control without unnecessary harm, while officers converged to secure the scene. The truck bed was opened, and the officer inside was finally seen, not as a routine figure in uniform, but as a human being who had been holding onto hope by a thread. When they freed him, the desert felt quieter than before, as if the land itself was holding its breath. He was dehydrated, shaken, and injured, but alive. As he sat on the curb wrapped in a blanket, watching the sun sink lower, his eyes kept returning to the three dogs sitting calmly nearby, their work already done. There was no triumph in their posture, no need for recognition. They had simply listened when others could not. They had noticed what everyone else missed. In that moment, the officer understood something deeper than gratitude. He understood humility. He understood that survival sometimes depends not on strength or authority, but on connection, on being seen by those who understand without words. News of the incident spread quickly, not because of dramatic footage or loud heroics, but because of the quiet power of what had happened. People talked about the dogs, about training, about instincts, but those closest to the story talked about trust. They talked about how the officer had believed someone would notice, even when evidence suggested otherwise. They talked about how the handler had trusted his team enough to act on a feeling that couldn't be explained easily. And they talked about how easily this story could have ended differently if just one link in the chain had failed. Recovery took time. The officer returned to duty months later, changed in ways that weren't immediately visible. He was more patient. More attentive. He watched people more closely, listened more carefully, and never again dismissed small signs as meaningless. Every rest stop, every roadside call carried new weight, a reminder of how thin the line can be between routine and tragedy. Whenever he saw police dogs working, a quiet respect settled over him, deeper than before. He knew firsthand what it meant to be saved without a single word spoken. If this story has stirred something inside you, if it reminded you of the power of awareness, compassion, and second chances, then take a moment right now to show it. Like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe so more stories like this can be told. And before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Please comment the words I noticed below the video, to honor the idea that sometimes saving a life starts with simply paying attention. In the end, this was not just a story about an officer, or even about three remarkable dogs. It was a story about listening, to instincts, to fear, to signals too quiet for most of the world to hear. It was about how help can arrive from the most unexpected place, and how life can be preserved by those who ask for nothing in return. Long after the rest stop returned to silence and the desert swallowed the tracks left behind, the truth remained. Someone was saved because someone else noticed. And sometimes, that makes all the difference.